Is Venice anything more than just gimmicks and gondola rides? We're here to find out.
Venice is the capital of the Veneto region of Italy, and it's so much more than just this single lagoon that all the tourists come. It's actually made up of over 118 different islands. It's named after the Veneti people who established Venice when they were seeking refuge from persecution after the fall of the Roman Empire in around 400 AD, and then it flourished into this permanent floating city that we know it today. For 1,000 years before the unification of modern Italy, Venice was actually an enormous maritime republic, known by many as the La Serenissima, which means the most serene republic of Venice. This is anything but the case, because in reality it was run by a bunch of lads called a doge. Doge being a translation from the Latin word dux, which means military leader. They were absolute bosses, ruling most of the Adriatic, taking over parts of the Dalmatian coast, Croatia, and infiltrating parts of the Byzantine Empire, who they had a very complicated relationship with. Sometimes they were powers and they let the trade happen between the two empires, and other times they were warring adversaries.
Like all great stories, the story of St. Mark's Basilica has pirates involved. Back in 828, Venetian pirates stole the body of St. Mark in Alexandria, Egypt, and got him out underneath pork fat in the bowels of the boat because the Muslims of Egypt would not touch the pork. It's said that the boat that the Venetian pirates brought St. Mark back with nearly sank during the journey. And it was St. Mark that showed himself to the captain, that guided them through that storm, told them to lower the sails, and enabled them to bring that body back here to Venice. And the piracy doesn't stop there. They continue to amass wealth at this basilica through the centuries. In fact, their biggest haul came during the Fourth Crusade, where during that crusade, they looted and stocked this bad boy up with gold. When you're coming to St. Mark's Basilica, there is quite a daunting line, but don't worry, that moves quite quickly in our experience. And if you line up, it's €3 to get in. However, you can scan a code and skip the line, and that will cost you €6 per ticket. But you need to come down here and scan the code the day before to ensure you get the time that you want. And once you get inside, they sting you further. It's €5 to see the Palla d'Oro, and then to get upstairs to see the 4 horses and get out onto that platform for the views, it's an extra €7. Venice is a waterways-based city, which means you need to get around via boat. Most people know about these fellas in the background, the gondolas, but they can cost up to €160 per hour during the day and crank up to about €200 per hour per night. You can seat up to 6 people, so you can share the cost with a bunch of other people if that's what you want to do. But it's not the only way to travel around the canals of Venice. We got plenty of others. There are 3 other ways you can get around the canals. You can go by Vaporetto, which is the water bus, and you can get a ticket per use, which is €9.50, or you can get daily passes, which is probably the more recommended way to do it if you're going to use them a lot. Then there's a water taxi, which is super steep, so we won't be going anywhere near the water taxis while we're here. And then there's the traghettos, which is €2 to cross the Grand Canal. It's still a gondola ride, it saves a lot of money.
€90. 4. There are a couple of iconic spots to get a drink in Venice. Harry's Bar is said to be the birthplace of the Bellini cocktail and a haunt for famous faces including Ernest Hemingway. The small cocktail will set you back about €20 though, so be prepared. Just around the corner in St Mark's Square, the Florian Cafe is the oldest coffee house in continuous operation in Italy, in business since 1720. Venice isn't known for its pizza or pasta. It has a completely different food culture, which isn't a traditional sit-down Italian feast with your antipasti, your primi, secondi, dolci, all that jazz. Here, you eat little meals across the day called cicchetti. Cicchetti are small plates of food that you'll find at small bars called baccaros, and you accompany it with an ombra, which is supposed to be a small glass of wine. This feels like a very generous pour. This was less than €10. Happy days. We're in a lagoon, so naturally seafood is going to be the order of the day. One of the most famous things that you can get in Venice is a cod spread called bacala. So even though they don't catch the cod here, often it comes in from Norway. You'll find this in every single little bar all around the city. She's strong, she's creamy. It's a fish pate all day. The drink of Venice spritz culture started here. A lot of people know about Aperol spritzers, Campari spritzers. I love Campari. When Tyler's forced to, he will have an Aperol. But in Venice, the drink is a select spritz, another of the Rosso Aperitivo.
Select because you don't have to select what you want, because I've just mixed it all into a bucket and this is the result.
Because of Venice's maritime history of trade across Europe and the East, Venice is known for two famous merchants of Venice. One is Marco Polo, who was the great explorer, went travelling along the Silk Road. He wrote tales of his explorations, and the Venice airport is actually named after him. The second famous merchant is Antonio from my favourite Shakespearean play, The Merchant of Venice. Antonio borrows money from the Jewish moneylender Shylock and then defaults on the payment. Shylock famously demands his pound of flesh and is painted as the antagonist of the play. There's lots of debate around whether Shakespeare had an anti-Semitic agenda, but I think it's really more interesting than those two teenage schmucks that everyone's interested in, because this has historical value. The Jewish ghetto existed here in Venice, where this bridge was closed at night so that the Jewish community was segregated from the rest of the city. It wasn't until Napoleon came through and conquered this part of Italy, absorbing Venice into his Napoleonic Kingdom of Italy, where Napoleon was the king, that Napoleon then gave civil rights to the Jewish citizens and ended segregation here in Venice. Venice became a part of a unified Italy in 1848 and now is just a tourist mecca. While there's only around 50,000 people who are registered residents here, over 20 million people visit every year. No wonder the city's bloody sinking.
Behind me we've got the Rialto Bridge, which is one of the biggest tourist attractions here in Venice, and it's the oldest bridge that crosses the Grand Canal here. It started its life many centuries ago as a timber bridge, and in the 1500s they decided to make it a brick bridge and something more permanent, which is why it's got the Renaissance style that it has today. For many, many centuries, if you wanted to cross the Grand Canal by foot, you had to come here to the Rialto Bridge.
When I first came to Venice as a young pup, there was no Google Maps, or I didn't have an iPhone and I didn't know of Google Maps, and Instagram wasn't a part of the zeitgeist. So I found out about this place on a BuzzFeed article, and when I got to Venice I had a paper map and was trying to navigate the city that way, I spent half a day looking for this place, got lost, foul mood, you can imagine. And then I was just like following a cute little cat on the way, trying to get back into the main thick of things. And they led me here. And then 10 years later, the godfather to my godson, so we share a godson, he's now married to an Italian girl whose uncle owns this. And I just think, 8 billion people on the face of this earth. What a nice little connection. And here we have tramezzino, which are little overstuffed sandwiches. White bread, crust cut off. Venetians don't have hairs on their chest. Molto bene, buon appetito. Finally, an appropriate sized glass of wine.
Finish it.
Finish you in a minute. Suave all day.
Tell us about Suave.
So Venice is known for its white wines. That's why I've been drinking Little Ombre Bianco Vino all day. But Suave is supposed to be like a local white wine. It's supposed to not be very good. And in this occasion, it's being served in plastic cups because we're sitting outside. So I think that'll be even worse. Low expectations. Rat shit.
During the Venetian Republic, masks were worn to hide people's identity for that cloak and dagger stuff. But they're more popularly known now for Carnivale, which is celebrated across Italy. But really, Venice is known for Carnivale, which it celebrates in February. So this is where you come for that real hardcore fun. If you are going to get a mask, just make sure it's Italian made, because they import a lot of them and you might not get the real product. This might look like an absolute tourist nightmare, but we still think it's pretty unique, much like Paris. Check out our Paris video right here. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Never Not.